This is the Double Doink Dynasty League podcast with Boyer, Andy, and your host, Tyler.
Hits the upright again. That's impossible.
Season's going to end on a double doink.
Welcome back to Double Doink Dynasty podcast presented by two of your performance-enhancing dads. Once again, Andy not here. Mattoon, thank you for jumping in this time. How you doing, man?
What's happening, fellas?
You know, another day, another dollar, or not. We don't have any sponsors, so no dollars, but we're here.
I got $1. I won.
Boyer won championships. You all heard about that, so we're past that already. And moving to the season.
Hey, you brought it up by talking about money.
That's fair. All right, so as you see, there is a draft board up. We are going to run our first Dynasty, Double Doink Dynasty mock draft. It is one quarterback for any of you that are jumping in that aren't in our league that watch us. It is one quarterback, non-PPR. We're going to be very, very league specific, very if a guy is hurting at running back, we may draft him a running back a little earlier than you would like in your mock. But we're going to work it based on team. We'll tell you what team needs look like, and we'll go from there. So hopefully this helps. This is clearly an early mock draft. We don't have landing spots. We don't have combine. We don't have a lot of stuff, but here we are. So we're going to give it a go. Lisak is going to start us off at the 101. Mattoon, he's going to take Bijan. I'm going to plug that in, but can you give me Lisak's team needs so that we kind of know going forward where we're at? He did sell everybody last season, has a bunch of picks, but give me maybe a couple strengths if he's got it or some weaknesses.
Yeah, so as you said, Lisak, he kind of sold the farm last year after unfortunate start, and so he's really looking at his key building pieces or maybe some younger guys in some interesting situations. He's got JMO out in Detroit. He's got his running backs are Michael Carter and Damian Harris. On his taxi, he's still holding on to Mr. Irrelevant or not so irrelevant Brock Purdy. But what's interesting about Lisak is he's got 4 picks this year in the first round. He's got an additional 3 first rounds next year. So it'll be interesting, and actually 3 more in 2025. So he's definitely playing for the future. So I think you're right. He might be looking at, taking best available or really not focused on the guys that are going to produce this year, but 2 to 3 years out.
Yep. So Bijan's going to be 1. We're not worried about that. So then he's also got the 102. Question would be, does he go double running back? Does he go to a best available wide receiver at this point to diversify? As I don't feel like double running back is his best case scenario being a rebuild. He does have picks in the future that he could trade, grab some stud producers at some point next year if he wants to compete. I don't think it's going to happen. He's going to ride this rebuild with some first this year. First next year, he might trade back a little bit. But I would personally say going double running backs, grabbing Bijan, grabbing Gibbs would be a bad choice. I say at this point, he goes top wide receiver. Any arguments with that?
I think you're dead on.
The only argument that I have is that I think he's in prime position to not grab Bijan. I think is that there are players around the league who would send the farm for him, and he needs to consider he's in a full rebuild. Like Bijan's not going to be something that gives him something next year and just makes him, competitive. Running back is a really tough group. You never know how long they're going to last. Generally, when you're in this kind of rebuild, which I give him a lot of credit for just going for it, you go wide receiver, quarterback, whatever first. And I think is that he could drop down, grab a wide receiver, say in the 1.5, 1.6 area, be really happy with it and get a ridiculous amount of, future first, whatever, go grab first later with those running backs once he has a wide receiver core. If he does grab Bijan, yes, wide receiver is the choice. But I just kind of want to mention is that there is a potential for him to get a haul for Bijan here and do that, because there's just no world where Bijan makes him suddenly relevant.
100% agree.
Yeah.
I just don't know what that price is going to look like. I don't know what it's going to be.
It would have to be ridiculous, but if it happens,
you could see a guy like Paul go 1-4 and 1-9. That leaves Lesak at the 2, the 4, the 6, the 7, and the 9.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Go grab all the wide receivers, go grab quarterback, go pretty much reset your team. And then in a year or two, when they're super good, then snag your running backs and make a run. Which is something similar to what you've done, Ty, where you had out of the startup a bunch of wide receivers who were really good. You went out and grabbed Mahomes when he was available for, a king's ransom, but you had the picks to give. And then you have Kenneth Walker. I assume this year you're going to grab a running back and you're going to end up making a run. It's going to be a very similar situation if he can make that work. But if he's not getting value for it, you got to take Bijan. I understand that. But I want to bring that up. It's not a guarantee if someone were to sell the farm for him.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think in the inverse of that, Boyer, I think you're dead on. Is Bijan may not make the best sense if he keeps everything that he's got right now, but if he also takes some studs once the draft happens and in a running back wide receiver combo, can he use his 7 picks, first round picks over the future years to then go grab some stud wide receivers? I mean, can he package 2 or 3 of them to go get a Justin Jefferson or somebody that instantly takes his team while keeping it young? It'll be interesting to see what he does. He's got assets left and right.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Especially if after the first couple weeks his early picks work out, absolutely he could end up sending a lot of those assets over to make a Tyler Reed type jump.
Yep.
Where all of a sudden it's like, oh, this team went from nothing to scary real quick. So he's got a lot of options, but I understand Bijan 1 and wide receiver would have to be 2. I don't think you pick Gibbs here with the way his team is built, if that's what he goes with.
Okay. So I think personally 2 is the trade back spot. I think he grabs Bijan at 1. He can trade that midseason if Bijan goes off, looks great. Trade him to contender midseason. You grab 2 or 3 more picks, whatever it comes to. Grab a young young wide receivers from a contending team that needs a running back, whatever the case may be. But I think he takes Bijan 1. I think this is his trade back spot. I think it's at 5 with Underhill. If Underhill wants to move up to grab Gibbs here, if you're not going hard for Gibbs here, you sit pat at 5 for Underhill, grab that last wide receiver in that top tier.
Yep.
So with that, I'm taking JSN for him. He's an Ohio State guy. I think JSN has been rising, not that he ever fell, but I think a lot of people are back on board with him being the number 1 overall. We'll kind of see how it plays, but are you guys cool throwing JSN at number 2?
I think it makes most sense for him. We saw him go after JMO this year. And so his team isn't trying to win now. And I know there's some potential injury concerns with JSN, but again, he's not trying to do it this year. So I think you take what was going into this season, the best rookie coming out.
Right. Yeah, he was injured all year, which doesn't help, but he should be fine for the combine, should be good to go. As long as he tests well, drafts well, I think he will be the top wide receiver off the board.
Yeah, one of the best things about fantasy football is that you get to go get your guys, and Andrew's in a place where he can go do that. And so, like, go get the guy that you believe in and can root for on Sunday, and yell at the screen during red zone and all that stuff. So yeah, that makes sense to me.
All right. So next up is Paul for 2. He is pick number 3. Then he's got my pick at 4. Mattoon, can you hit me with a little bit of Paul's team here? Team needs.
Yeah, Paul's team might be the most interesting in our league as far as trying to figure out where he goes and really what his team is. he's got a ton of really young wide receivers that maybe didn't have great seasons this year or even the year before. He's got Wan'Dale Robinson. He's got Christian Watson. He's got Khalil Shakir, Tony, Drake London, all guys that were big names coming out into their rookie seasons that just didn't hit it. So we'll see if, now that they're going in their second or third year, if they can shake out. But then he's also got a bunch of young running backs that I think are also in that same situation. DeAndre Swift, Cam Akers, AJ Dillon. He's got a stud tight end in Goddard, and he's got Lamar at quarterback. So his team, I think, could be the most volatile out of any of them. So,
yeah. We saw the issues with Swift, Akers this year. Swift has been injured on and off for the last couple. He does have back-to-back picks here. I don't imagine Paul is going to be trading out. His team is in a halfway competing window here, assuming things break right. So I think he holds pat at 3 and 4 unless he feels like he can move up to 1. Grab Bijan if he feels like that is a piece that'll put him over. So for me, I'm taking Gibbs at 3 for Paul because I think it makes the most sense. He's going to grab Gibbs at 3 or 4. And then I think he takes best available, whoever he feels like is best available for wide receiver. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, I think with his team having question marks, at both, I'll say flex positions minus the tight end, I think he's got to try to hedge his bets and cover both bases.
So Boyer at 4, thoughts Addison versus Quentin Johnston. Or another wide receiver that you might like better.
I don't think you can go wrong with either one, to be honest. I like Quentin Johnson because of he's a physical specimen. He's 6'4", like 220. If he runs a 4.3 at the combine, he's going to shoot up these. He's going to be the immediate wide receiver one, I think. If he runs a 4.4, he might drop a little bit. But to me, when you look at his game tape and what he did, in college and things, I think that's the guy. He's just a prototypical, like almost instant success in the NFL. And I could be wrong. I'm not an analyst. I don't watch all the tapes and understand route running and all that stuff. But the guy is a yak monster. And at the very least, if he just cannot run routes and he cannot get open, some team is going to figure out a way to get him open, get him the ball, and let him run the ball, like run from there. So
he definitely had the worst quarterback of this top group.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which doesn't help. So transitioning to the NFL with a better quarterback, yeah, you're playing higher level defenses, but like if you got a good quarterback that can get you the ball, you can do your thing. So
and we've seen a big kind of movement in the NFL to guys who can just get yards after the catch, where it doesn't matter what they do before. It's just, can you get the ball and make guys miss and move the ball forward and get these big plays. And at 6'4", he can do that, which is ridiculous, let alone the jump balls and things like that. I think he's probably one of the safer bets in this first round as far as just delivering immediate value right off the start, almost regardless of what team he goes to. So I'm going to go with Quentin Johnson. I think it makes the most sense. It would. I understand because there are concerns. I understand if someone likes other players, but that's my personal opinion.
Yeah, I'm going QJ as well. I think part of it,
a nickname for him and everything. Go on.
It's just easier. But the other thing you got to look at and maybe how I view things sometimes is, Paul went after Drake London last year coming out of USC. London didn't have a great season this year. And so, you're at USC, like you talked about with the quarterbacks, you've got a little bit better system around you than maybe what Quentin Johnson had at TCU, and he was still able to produce and quite frankly propel them into their semifinal championship run that they did. And so you got to sit there and wonder, is it just the USC offense that's putting out these stellar wide receivers. Not that I think London's a bust yet, but do you go back to the USC wide receiver room with your top 4 pick again?
Yeah, but a lot of people would say anybody coming out of TCU as a wide receiver is not good either.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of those that haven't been great.
Yep.
So, but anyway, let's move on. I think Paul definitely holds tight at 3 and 4 unless he decides he wants to move up for a guy. That leaves us to Underhill at the 5th pick. I think he wants to trade up and get Gibbs. I think that would be his goal. But he's missed that chance. He's sitting at 5. Next best available would probably be Addison in most books. Colin, tell me a little bit about Underhill's team here, and then we'll talk about what we feel like he should do.
Yeah, Underhill's got pieces. And he has, I'd say, over the last 2 years, outperformed maybe expectations. His team's got Josh Jacobs, James Conner, Jalen Waddle, Jalen Hurts at the quarterback. Other than that, there's some serious depth concerns. Russell Gage, Terry McLaurin, Waller. He's been starting Cordero Patterson over the last couple of years, who's, in that Atlanta offense has definitely been better than expected, but I think he's got to nail this pick here.
So for me, having McLaurin, having Waddle, he's got Gage, he's got Marvin Jones, he's got Mac Hollins, Greg Dortch. Like, he doesn't have that wide receiver 3 slot solidified at all. I know that he wants a running back, but is it worth going to Charbonnet, A-Chain, Evans, Kendre Miller, one of those other guys? Or do you take what should be a more surefire thing with Jordan Addison and fill that wide receiver 3 role? Personally, Jacobs, I think Connor starts to fall off, which means now you're hurting at running back. I think, honestly, if you want my opinion, Underhill, this is a rebuild situation that needs to start. I hate to tell you that because you don't want to hear it, but you've got a couple good young receivers. You've got Jalen Hurts. Like, you've got a couple pieces that it shouldn't be a long rebuild. If Jacobs finds a good home, he's still young enough to have another couple good years in him. But I personally think it should be time. I'm not even saying a full rebuild, just at least to drop some of these older guys and try to get younger, try to build for another couple year window. So for me personally, if he doesn't get up to Gibbs where I think he wants to be, I think he has to take wide receiver 3 here. As I think that's pending landing spots, pending draft capital, all that stuff. I think Jordan Addison is the safest bet here. But I do know that running back is a team need, and I have a feeling he might want that. So, Boyer, any thoughts on 5 here on where he might go?
His team has overperformed for 2 years. And he had a bunch of points. I think it was like 3 or 4 in points this year, largely because of Josh Jacobs and Jalen Hurts. And Hurts, like Waddle, both really good. McLaurin could be a solid anchor. But yeah, I mean, the rest of his team is more or less hot garbage. He actually has a lot of holes that he needs to consider filling here. I would almost move back if I could, like, even if it's just a couple spots, and grab somebody in the 2nd or something like that, and then move that 2nd for, a 3rd and a future 2nd, or I don't know. He needs a lot because his bench is not very good. He's got a few guys who are, and I could see where if he makes the right moves this year, then he sucks this year, but then the following year he could be very good with an up and coming young team.
So
if he spends the farm and goes for Gibbs, then he'll have Gibbs and a few solid anchors, but he won't have a lot of guys around him. And I think he'll have another disappointing middle, like
Campaign.
fifth or sixth year. So he has decisions to make as far as whether he thinks that's going to be worth it for him or not. And to me, I would move down. I would
Go ahead.
So here's something that I didn't bring up, and I think you guys are both hitting this nail on the head. Underhill's in a tough spot. How do you ride Josh Jacobs and James Conner and Terry McLaurin and Waller until the wheels absolutely fall off, because they're getting there. Josh Jacobs' value probably hasn't ever been higher, but there's also a huge question mark on what next year looks like. So I understand that. What he's got, though, is 3 first-rounders in 2025. So does he make this his last chance all-in move, knowing that 2025 is his rebuild year as far as rookies go?
And I kind of understand that, but the value on some of these guys is the highest they will ever be.
It'll ever be.
He's a free agent. And like the season he just put up was a product of the Raiders and what they were this year. He could go to another team and kind of be the 1B to somewhere. You never know. And I feel like is that other quarterback needy teams might be like, I'll go ahead and add Josh Jacobs, grab that touchdown upside. I'm a contender. Even if he's just a flex, I'm fine with that. Underhill should not be fine with that. He needs to move him at that height of his value, I think, to, make sure is that his team is in position where when those 3 first comes up in 25, he has a young core already. And then he's able to draft a bunch of that depth and just kind of start running. It's called a Dynasty League. He can run a dynasty at that point if he's able to do it right and make the right trades. And I don't think Gibbs is going to be something that if he moves up or if he ends up drafting best wide receiver, I think he just kind of stays middle of the pack this year, and then he kind of starts to falter. And then he's not in as great a position in 25 when he has those picks.
All right. So real quick, I would love for Underhill to move down if he wants a running back. If he says I want best available, I think he has to take Addison here. If he moves down, running back is deep. You've got 4 or 5 that are going to be pretty much in the same tier 4 or 5 picks later. You'll grab at least one of them. If you want a running back here, you trade back. If you want a wide receiver, best available is Jordan Addison.
Yeah, Addison will provide value, I assume, pretty much wherever he goes automatically. Running backs, and in my opinion, Underhill can afford this. He can move down and grab a running back who might not, kind of like a Javonte Williams. You're not expecting him to be great in that first year, but you're hoping that he takes over in year 2 or 3. And then when those 3 picks come in, that's when he has, that maximum, oh my God, all of a sudden his team makes that jump. And I think as a decision he's going to have to make, I think he probably takes Addison here. Agreed. If he doesn't move it, I don't know who would come and grab it. That's kind of the problem. Who's going to come and grab Addison? And I don't, the wide receivers are pretty deep too. So he might be stuck. But he should explore it at 3 at least.
Yep. So, all right, let's get off of Underhill. I've heard enough about this 105. We're taking Jordan Addison, assuming he's stuck there. I think that's the best position player available. You grab him, we move on. We got Andrew for 2 more. Andrew took Bijan and Jackson Smith and Jigba at 1 and 2. He's got picks 6 and 7. At this point, where we go for Andrew is pretty much up in the air. We've kind of talked about it already, where he is in a rebuild. If he moves that first pick, right? Like we kind of talked about, if he moves that second pick, if he wants to move one of these picks, he is admitting that this is going to be a rebuild, right? He's in a rebuild. He wants to get more picks, which means he should go wide receiver. I don't know. I feel like this should be running back area here. A lot of people are super high on Josh Downs. So I would say that is probably one of the picks that would happen here. Assuming Andrew stays, he should take a wide receiver, and it realistically should be it'll be best landing spots, best draft capital, that sort of thing. So maybe Jalen Hyatt gets good draft capital, Zay Flowers, Josh Downs,
Keyshawn.
Boutte. One of these guys could get great draft capital, could just get a great landing spot. Somebody goes to the Chiefs, somebody goes to the Bills, somebody goes somewhere where he just absolutely loves. They're going to shoot up draft boards. This is all going to change at some point down the road. We've kind of talked about it. He's got a lot of picks in the future as well. He does need a quarterback, and he has no draft picks until the back end of the second. So this could be a quarterback spot. This should be a trade down if you want to get a quarterback, though. So thoughts on who should go here? Mattoon, I'll start with you. You can give me one pick, both picks. He realistically will trade back one of these picks, I believe, to get a quarterback later on.
Yeah, I think you're dead on. I think this is exactly where he needs to trade, because I think there's a clear break in the tiers for wide receiver, which is what his team needs. So with that, I know he didn't have the year that maybe we were expecting. I don't think LSU in general did. So I'm going Keyshawn on this. I think he still has one of the best profiles out there.
All right, Boyer, you go with giving Lesack a wide receiver here with Keyshawn Boutte.
Oh yeah, the way that his team is built, you should always, at this point in time, hammer wide receivers.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely hammer them. You should have what you feel like is an overabundance of wide receivers, because regardless of how you feel about these wide receivers, only so many are actually going to produce fantasy relevance, even in the first rounds going forward. So grab wide receivers that have insane longevity. That's how you should be building your team in a full rebuild. So wide receiver all day long, like hammer them as hard as you can. And Andrew is in a great position to do that exactly, and make sure that he sets his team up for success. And in the next year, he can start, looking at running backs if he feels like he's there, or tight ends, or quarterbacks, or whatever it is that he needs to go forward.
All right, so pick 107 should be another wide receiver, assuming things fall right. He, like Boyer said, hammers wide receivers. I honestly think 106 or 107, however you feel, is a trade back, like I said. But since we are not playing trades, we are not pulling anybody up. Lesack is still here. Do we all agree another wide receiver should go here, or do we feel like we should grab a Tucker, a Bigsby, a Charbonnet, Kendre Miller? Do we feel like maybe somebody trades up and we want to throw a running back there, or we just want to give Andrew a wide receiver, assuming he's drafting that spot?
I mean, I could almost see him grabbing just best available here to see what happens and play the leverage game. You got a running back like Tucker. You hope that, as Boyer, you were saying earlier, Bijan, you draft him, he goes off. You then flip that player for value later. I don't know. He's in a weird spot. I think we all agree that he needs to trade back. So
right. So this would be, if we grab another running back here, he's got two. He'd have Bijan, Smith and Jigba, Boutte, and then Sean Tucker, Charbonnet, Kendre Miller, depending upon landing spots, depending upon draft capital. Do you want to give him a running back here then?
No.
I don't think any of us want to. I don't think it makes sense. But
so I think is that me, Tyler, and Andy will probably end up looking at potentially trading up for Tucker or Miller or whoever it is we like here. If he doesn't manage to trade up, he should highly consider trading for or drafting a quarterback here. If he really believes in Bryce Young, Bryce Young is being considered like the Andrew Luck, Trevor Lawrence type of prospect here. And if that's the case, and he doesn't have a pick until, the late second, he's
211,
not getting that quarterback. And quarterbacks have, as much as I preach wide receivers having longevity, quarterbacks have longevity beyond anybody else. And we're in one quarterback league. You just need one quarterback. So if that's going to happen and you believe in Young, then you get Bryce Young here. And it seems silly, but Ty, you made a trade for Patrick Mahomes, and that was immediately a giant difference in the way your team operated and moved forward. So, and again, if you believe in Young, I don't necessarily believe in Young because of his size. He's a very polished passer, but if he's not going to, I don't know how long he's going to last. He's small, he's short. Like, these kind of passers don't necessarily last very long. And the one exception that we have is freaking Kyler Murray, who needs to have homework in his contract or whatever. Like, so who knows what that's going to end up being. But if you really believe in him, you have to take him here, because if you're looking at longevity for a big rebuild, this is your chance, and get that quarterback. So I would take Bryce Young or another quarterback. Stroud is probably another one I would consider here. If you think he's another good pocket passer, I would consider quarterback here hard.
Yeah.
If I can't move to a running back needy team later, I would consider quarterback instead, because at this point you've hammered wide receiver. Get the quarterback and kind of set your team up for the future for the next 5-10 years for both positions.
Right. So the first year, 2021's rookie draft, quarterbacks went at the 7, 8, 9, 8, 9, 10, whatever it was. Last year, the quarterback class was not as good. They went later. These ones are kind of splitting the difference between the two of them. I think they could go back of the first, early second, at least for a couple of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it is a good trade back spot. Andrew's pick here is probably going to be moved. What do you guys want to do with this spot right now? Give me a name to put in there right now to keep the rest of the draft straightforward. I would almost say throw running back in there, but
yeah,
I think Bryce Young makes most sense. He's got two wide receivers. He's got his running back. Set your lineup. Quarterback, two wide receivers, and a running back going forward.
Yeah.
That's a good position to be in. We're like, regardless.
So
Like, what people think of the value, it's a good position to be in.
All right, so we'll give him Bryce Young, just knowing that this is probably going to be a moved pick.
It'll be,
but with Andrew's team picking, we said we're not moving anything, we're not adjusting. So Andrew's taking a quarterback. He needs a quarterback. So let's move on. Colin Kelly's team, I believe, is next at 108.
Yeah. Yep. That team is young and very old at the same time. ETN is his bright spot. Jerry Jeudy, and then a whole lot of fossils. He's got Derrick Henry, who's still producing, Amari Cooper, Keenan Allen, dangerous, Russell Wilson. It's just George Kittle's obviously having a good year. He's got Chris Olave, though, is a bright spot. So he's got two young wide receivers. He's got ETN, who looks good. I think
you could say Ramondre. You could say Ramondre is solid for right now.
Yeah, you could. Yep. He's kind of in that mid-tier younger running backs. So I think just with the meat and potatoes of the draft that we're in, my 2 cents is maybe running back. He's trying to find that guy to replace Henry.
Yeah, I think he needs a wide receiver as well. So
yeah,
because he's got Cooper, he's got Allen, he's got a couple older guys there as well. But as knowing Colin Kelly a little bit, I believe as well he will try to fill that running back role.
Yeah.
So I would agree with you. Next best available: Sean Tucker, Zach Charbonnet, Kendre Miller.
I think it's Tucker right now, just based
Sean
off
Tucker right now.
initial things. But like I said, he needs wide receiver. With the wide receivers and where value is, who knows? He could surprise us. But
I agree with Tucker, but Henry's still Henry. Like he's not.
Mhm.
It's not like he
Exactly.
died, right?
Correct.
And I would say Etienne is really his RB2 and Stevenson flex, which is a good
Mhm.
position to be in. Allen's getting older. Chargers have struggled. Amari Cooper is on the Browns, so definitely wide receiver need. I think if there's a wide receiver,
You've got Chris Olave to go with Jerry Judy too.
He does. Yep.
I think if there's a wide receiver who went to a really good spot that is there, I think he takes them. Like, I think that makes sense. I think Tucker, as far as talent goes, makes the most sense, which is why I'll agree with the Tucker pick here. But if there's a wide receiver on the board that went to like a Green Bay or something like that, I think that that's a no-brainer.
Assuming Aaron Rodgers is still there.
True. But I mean, you could talk about any other landing positions for Downs at that point, I guess.
Mhm.
If Downs goes to a really good spot, he's got to be a contender. And you almost have to assume Tucker, with the way that the league is set up, that he's going to end up being a 1B to somebody before he ends up being the 1A, kind of like a Javonte Williams. So with his running backs being as good as they are, he's got Henry, who's the number one, and he's got Etienne, who's the number one, and he's got Stevenson, who should be the number one, although Belichick does whatever he wants. I could see the way that the NFL draft dictates what Colin Kelly does here. But Tucker, I think it talent level wise makes sense based on where we're drafting now. But I would not be shocked if he goes wide receiver here based off of how the NFL draft goes.
Yep. So we're back to Paul. Paul has taken Gibbs and Johnston. We've talked about his team kind of being all over the place. He's got solid players, young players, but not a lot of high producers. Lamar Jackson, Dallas Goedert, and then a handful of rookies, second-year wide receivers, Swift and Akers and Dillon. So he has taken, to fill in there, he's taken Gibbs to help that running back room. He's taken Quentin Johnston. I know Boyer and I have talked about this. He's got Dallas Goedert, he's got Tunyon, he's got Gronk. Tunyon's out of Green Bay this year. I feel Gronk is, well, not in the league, so that's still nothing. And then Goddard is 28. Tight ends take a year or two to develop. Michael Mayer is a good tight end prospect coming out. I personally think Paul doesn't have another pick until the 212 right now. So if he wants a guy, he has to grab him. Right? Oh, he's got the 203.
203.
I lied. Yep, I thought that was Nolan for a second. Nope, Paul's got the 203. So if you miss Mayer here, you could take Mayer at the 203. Or if you take Mayer here, you hope a running back or wide receiver, whoever you were looking at this 109, one of those positions drops you to the 203. I get Goddard is a solid tight end. He's had some health issues, injury issues, and really he's got nobody to back him up. I personally think this is a Mayer pick. But once again, if Downs is there in a good spot, that could be a solid pick. Charbonnet gets a good draft spot. Bigsby, Zach Evans, Kendre Miller. This deep class, if somebody gets a good spot, they could go. But right now, Mayer's been getting first-round buzz. If he is a first-round tight end or even a super early second-round tight end, I think he's going to be a late first, early second in our draft at worst. Thoughts, opinions on Mayer versus a Downs or Charbonnet or whoever you want to put there.
Go ahead, Boyer.
So if I'm Paul and I'm looking at my wide receivers, Drake London,
Christian Watson.
Right. And then he's got Quentin Johnson that he took in this draft based
Just
on
to
us.
Quentin Johnson.
Right.
Those are solid players, but they're all very young. They all have a lot of question marks. At least two of them, if not all three of them, will have quarterback questions as far as who they're going through. If Downs goes to a solid situation, like not the Bears, I think is that he has to go with that type of player, someone who he can build upon, add to that depth, and ensure he's got. We play 3 wide receivers in this league, so it's very important to have those because some of the top tier teams have 3 very good, like more or less wide receiver 2s or mid wide receiver 2 at worst players in their wide receiver 3 position. So I think Downs makes the most sense because he has Goddard, and tight ends can play historically through year, when they're 32-ish, we'll say. Kelsey might go to 34 if he's an aberration, but 32 feels fine. So he's got 4 years to figure that out. Kyle Pitts showed what can happen to tight ends who seem like can't misses, that seem like they're going to be amazing year one. Meyer has talent for sure. He's going to be good. If he goes to a bad team, even if he goes to a good team, like tight ends just aren't used in the same way as they were before. So I'm going to go wide receiver here. I'm going to go Downs. And if I don't like Downs, I'm probably going to go with whatever running back gets put in the best position, maybe Charbonnet or a Tank, whoever it is that maybe goes into a surprise spot, maybe in the 3rd or 4th, where it's like, oh, like Tank went to the Chiefs in the 3rd, like who knows? Like that's where I'm going to go because I have Goddard, and I'm going to hope that, Paul has other assets. He can go get another tight end if Goddard doesn't work out 2 years from now or whatever we're worried about. Like I would go wide receiver, running back. Downs would be my pick here.
Yeah, I'm definitely on the same mindset, Boyer, and I think knowing that he's got a pick about 5 picks later, that just looking at how things have been in our league, how things tend to be with tight ends and what we've seen, and really, unless you've got one of those top 3, really Kelsey being in a whole world of his own.
Really top 2.
The rest, really everybody else is kind of jumbled in together. So what I'm looking at for him is what position group with my roster do I feel more confident in? We talked about he's got 6 plus Quentin Johnson wide receivers that are all really young. Do we feel like those guys can blossom? Or he's got his group of running backs with Swift, who should be an absolute stud, but has kind of dropped the ball. He's got AJ Dillon, which will he fully take that backfield in Green Bay? We'll see. He's got Brian Robinson still in his taxi, which we'll see what happens in Washington. He takes Gibbs, and then he's also got Akers. Yeah, so all of his running backs still have a lot of question marks. So if I'm him, I'm going with, like you said, either Hyatt or a running back, depending on where I feel that person's going to produce the most. So I think landing spot's going to be huge for him in this decision.
All right, so I threw Josh Downs in there. Hyatt could be another wide receiver that gets 1st, 2nd round capital. So that may be the pick if Hyatt finds a good spot. I saw a mock earlier that put Hyatt to New England or something like that, which I don't know that that's what I want, but he's kind of the same type of guy as Tyquan Thornton. And you really want 2 field stretchers on that team that are fast as can be? I don't know.
Yeah.
It really depends. You see him mocked all over the place. So Downs, Hyatt, if he was going to go running back here, I'd say it's probably going to be Charbonnet. I think that's probably the next best running back, next best. NFL's call, putting the most buzz behind him. We'll give him Downs. I think he could go either way here. I understand your guys' thought on Mayer falling. especially once we talk about these next couple teams. So
Yeah, and that's something you have to look at. Like, if Paul is looking at these other teams, he's like, "Man, these guys are going to Meyer. If that's who he wants, he probably can get him at 203. And if any point in time he gets any indication that he's worried about the Meyer might go early, like he can go get him. Like he can add a pick from next year or whatever to move up a couple picks. I think it makes more sense just to add running back or wide receiver, something that will give him a better chance of fielding that full team that really he was missing last year, where he was kind of surprising. And it's like, man, if he could just filled some of these holes, he would have been like a really surprising team.
Yep. So all right, so we got Nolan next.
We love Nolan.
Yeah. So he has holes mostly at running back. So I think that he's going running back here, especially with all of these other wide receivers. We can go through his team more in depth, but with 5 wide receivers off the board and 3 running backs, his running back situation is what, Khalil Herbert and Isaiah Pacheco, because he just traded for him. So running back is going to have to be Nolan's go-to here. Would you guys agree with that?
Absolutely. I mean, real quick, wide receivers: Garrett Wilson, Devonta Smith, DJ Moore, Calvin Ridley, Rashad Bateman. There's a couple other guys, Claypool, DJ Chark. We'll see, but I think it's clear it's running back here.
Yeah, I could see him being a surprise team that moves up to get a guaranteed wide receiver. If one of these top 2 or 3 wide receivers end up going for going to like just a ridiculous spot, then he would be somebody. Absolutely, he's one of the biggest traders in the league. He could move up and go grab one of those guys just to solidify that spot as the premier young wide receivers that he has. But in lieu of that, his hole is running back. There's nowhere else for him to go. If he had a wide receiver, they would probably be on the bench, most likely, unless DJ Moore gets someone, who is another failed quarterback, like a Wentz comes over to the Panthers, or Trubisky comes to the Panthers. But either way,
they're gonna draft somebody,
right? Either way, that makes the most sense. But I would not be shocked if Nolan tried to make a trade up, if like a Johnson or an Addison went to the Chiefs or the Bills or something silly like that.
Sure. So all right, so it goes to me at the 111. I will let you guys take that. I can tell you what my team needs are, but I'll let you guys deal with me.
Ty, you want to run down your roster real quick, since it's your roster?
Mattoon, what do you got?
Yeah, so Ty's roster, we just briefly talked about it earlier. Mahomes, he's set at quarterback for a while. He's got Ty's built himself starting with his wide receivers. He's got Higgins, he's got Amon-Ra, he's got Christian Kirk, who was a big name this year. And then his running backs, Dobbins, who unfortunately only got to play so many games for you, but when he was on the field, produced. And then one of the best rookie picks last year was Kenneth Walker. So you're in a good spot with the young roster. You got Rachaad White as well. If there's a guy that's taken a tight end in the first round, it's Tyler. We all know that he loves to draft about every tight end available. But I think here Ty's probably going with a running back.
Warrior.
Yeah, it kind of depends on where Ty is on Dobbins, and I think Dobbins is a dog, and I think we kind of saw that after the playoff game. He wants the ball, and he doesn't get the ball as much with Lamar there. If Lamar's gone, he'll be like the guy. And even with Lamar there, he might command enough. I mean, we only saw him like really healthy in the last third of the season or so, and he was very good when he was there. So if I'm Ty, the position that I'm most worried about, I want to make a run. I think Freiermuth will make a jump. He's good. Tight end's fine. And if Ty wants to strengthen that spot like I know he does, he'll probably go somewhere in the third or fourth and get some obscure tight ends that all of a sudden is a starter within a year or two anyway. So tight end's not an issue. I think running back makes sense, but I think he could make full use of a good wide receiver here as well. Christian Kirk struggled in the last third of the year. After their bye, he was not consistent in any way, shape, or form. And they got Calvin Ridley coming in.
We didn't get to your bench.
I was gonna say we didn't get to your bench. He's got Dotson, he's got Pickens, so he does have a couple other young wide receivers that will produce.
Sure, I guess my point is that for a wide receiver 3, if there's a wide receiver there that he believes that would give him wide receiver 3 numbers guaranteed, he also has a flex position, and Rondale White isn't. Is it Rondale White? That's not the
Rashad White.
Rashawn White. Rashawn White isn't guaranteed to be there. Tampa Bay might pick Bijan for all we know. So if that's the case, I feel like he could end up going wide receiver if it's in the right spot to be that wide receiver 3, and then Kirk or one of those other guys could end up being his flex. I think at this point in the draft, there's a lot of running backs left who will probably be in good positions, aside from the wide receivers that we've already chosen. So running back feels more likely. But I'm not going to rule out wide receivers just because of the way his team is built, because I don't think Kirk is necessarily a guy that he can count on.
Right. So I'll give you a quick opinion on my team. I feel like my team is well-rounded. I don't have a lot of depth. Especially at running back, I don't have a lot of depth. Kenneth Gainwell, Rashad White are my 2 and 3. Antonio Gibson are 3 or 4, and Gibson is in there as well. I need Dobbins to be good, and personally, I'm on kind of with the Boyer bandwagon from what he talked about in the championship pod, that sometimes you've just got to hammer running backs and hope for the best.
Just stack them up, man. Just stack them up.
So I'm kind of on board with that at this point. With Dobbins and Gibson, those were the 2 I drafted with Saquon. I traded Saquon. Now I'm stuck with Dobbins and Gibson, and luckily I got Walker. So I personally, I think I'm going to end up leaning running back here. I would honestly consider Michael Mayer, possibly depending upon landing spot, at 111 to help with Freiermuth. I don't know that I will do it.
He can't help Freiermuth. He can only replace him.
Well, right, but Kenny Pickett's the quarterback, and but he had he quietly had a good year this year. But anyway, I'm going running back. There's no way around it. I think I need to up that position more than I need to up wide receiver. I can grab wide receiver with the 202, 204 if need be as well. Unless one of these guys goes to a phenomenal landing spots, falls. I mean, Hyatt's still there. Hyatt would probably be my choice of what's left right now at this position. But landing spot, draft capital, all that's going to make a big difference. We've talked about it. So at this point, you want to give me Evans? You want to give me A-Chain? You want to give me Kendre Miller? What do you want to do here?
I
would do Kendre Miller.
Miller's the guy I would go. I think Miller's potentially fallen a slightly because he didn't play in that championship game.
I think with the way that this draft has gone, with 3 wide receivers there in the middle and Bryce Young, I feel like Miller could have gone 2-3 picks before this. So I feel like that would be great value for you. I think there's a chance that we're all wrong in this draft and running backs go way heavy. And if that is the case, then you end up being forced to grab wide receiver. I don't feel like that you're going to be upset with that, but like you're not going to reach for a running back just because. But
So
in
I
this
like
case,
my team. I like my team layout. I feel like I can take what's available, what's
yeah,
there, and then work around it.
kind of like what we talked about with Colin Kelly. Like, you're just best available at this point, and Miller
Mhm.
is by far to me going to be best available because he could go 1-6, and if you get that at 111, like, you didn't even have to trade, and you still got a steal.
All right. So to Boyer's team, he's got Herbert, and then he runs to and AJ Brown, DK Metcalf, Chris Godwin at wide receiver, Mark Andrews at tight end. He's got Gabe Davis at wide receiver to help out. But he's got Eckler and Elliott to go with Najee Harris and Damian Pierce. Damian Pierce could very well be replaced, or at least be in a heavy committee back moving forward. I think they end up drafting somebody, bringing somebody in. I hate to say that because Damian Pierce was solid this year, but I think that Houston brings somebody in, puts Pierce in a rough spot. Najee Harris will have a full workload. Zeke is, well, getting to be old, getting to be broken down, and then Eckler is still going to be a stud.
Jamal Williams, he's the best personality in the NFL.
Jamal Williams, locker room style, he will keep everybody young and hip and happy. But eventually Zeke just falls apart. Pierce just doesn't have a role. I think Boyer has to be looking for one of these running backs to fall here. He could use a wide receiver too. Don't get me wrong. Godwin, Brown, Metcalf are all solid. But if you got to move Najee up for Zeke, you're sitting in a flex situation that is currently Gabe Davis, Tim Patrick, maybe Damian Pierce if he is still a 1A.
Which he will be.
But but at this point, Boyer won the championship. Boyer has a shot to kind of do whatever he wants. But he did talk about it on the championship podcast. He's gonna plan on hammering running back, and I think that's best case scenario. He's got to replace Eckler. He's got to replace Elliott. Not Eckler this year, but Eckler in the next couple of years, I think will fall off. Zeke is going to fall off sooner than Boyer wants. He's going to want a replacement. So I personally say running back. Mattoon?
I do too. The one thing that I'll say with Boyer's team is this year he had a lot of running back depth. He still has some of that. You know, we were all kind of writing Pierce off at the beginning of the year of he's a but running back. You know, he was drafted into the Texans system and he was the only guy, but yeah, he's the only thing that they have. Will he still be able to produce when everyone's stacking the box and whatnot? And he did. He kind of proved everybody wrong, I'll say. And so he still got question marks. And so if I'm looking at Boyer, his team, I think running back certainly makes sense. I think it's going to be dependent on where everything shakes out. But I wouldn't be surprised to see him go grab a young stud wide receiver if that run on running backs happens. You know, he's got AJ Brown, he's got DK Metcalf, he's got Chris Godwin. We'll see what Chris Godwin looks like if Brady's gone. You know, I know that Boyer during the season had mentioned after some trades happened, I wish I would have known that wide receiver was available. I would have gone and making a move. So I don't think a wide receiver in a good landing spot is out of question.
So real quick, the last thing is running backs are going to probably start hitting in the second round. If he wants one, he grabs one here. Wide receivers are deep enough. He can grab a couple dart throws. He does have the 206. He does have the 209.
Yep.
So I think wide receiver is going to be hit at the 6 and 9. He's going to take a running back here. Boyer, quick thoughts, and then we're going to push through the second round.
I believe in Damian Pierce as our running back, but I believe in that guy. He runs like a bat out of hell, and the new regime who takes over could absolutely draft someone, but they can't ignore him, I don't think, and he'll have a chance. But I'm going to hammer running back because it's been working so far. And I'm not going to go away from that strategy. I have wide receivers. Gabe Davis is a fine number 4 wide receiver. I'm not going to be upset with it. And wide receivers are somebody who you can always get for a second or a third. Thanks, Underhill, for Claypool, who I turned into a second. So probably like in this draft right now where running backs haven't been taken, I'm going running back. If somehow running backs make this big run, say in that 2-4 to
11, yeah.
2-6 spot, 2-7 spot, then there's going to be somebody, Addison, Butte, Downs, Hyatt, there's going to be somebody, and there's not going to be as many running backs, and I have the 2-6, 2-9, might as well take a dart throw, and I have plenty of depth at running back. Well, I'll take the wide receiver. I'm in a position where I can take the best available, but those are the 2 spots I'm worried about. I'm not worried about Andrews at tight end, so get off of that. I don't even care if Lamar is there or not. He's clearly a good tight end. We're gonna get one of those 2. Running back is my primary concern, just for the fact of I want a young running back to take over for Eckler or Zeke when they have their balls fall off and die at the end of the season. And I need Najee and somebody else to take over. So Zach Evans looks good.
I plugged Zach Evans in. It could be Evans, could be A-Chain, could be Bigsby. There's a handful of guys here that are still possible.
Hold on. Just to upset you, Ty, I'm gonna go Tank because I like his name. Is that cool?
That's fine. You can say it on the podcast. Zach Evans is plugged in. Tank can be the next guy. Because really,
I just want the name.
Capital matters. So moving over to Andy, we are going to fly through the second round a lot quicker than we did the first round. We did a lot of talking about teams. This is the first time going through Andy, so I'm going to run through his team real quick. He's got Burrow, Mixon, Sanders, Devontae Adams, Tariq Hill, Mike Williams, Kyle Pitts at tight end, Devin Singletary in the flex. His bench has Brandon Ayuk is really about what he's got. Outside of that, he doesn't have much depth. He's got Kyron Williams on his and Isaiah Spiller on his taxi, but I don't think either of those guys are gonna be worth a damn next year anyway. So at that point, you're sitting on Adams, which will give you another couple years. Tariq Hill will give you another couple years. Mike Williams, I don't know what to do with that guy. With Mixon, Sanders, Singletary, I think they all at least have some sort of role.
And Javonte.
He does have Javonte. No, yeah, he does. He's got Javonte. So, yeah, for sure. I'm taking a wide receiver for Andy. He's got the 301, and he doesn't have another pick till the 309. Hyatt has fallen, I think, far enough. I think Hyatt has to go off the board here. Unless Zay Flowers or Rashee Rice or somebody like that gets a phenomenal landing spot. I think Jalen Hyatt has been projected first-round capital, early second-round capital. Jalen Hyatt, I believe, would be the best fit for Andy's team at this point. Any objections?
I'd do it.
I'm going Myers. I'm not trusting Taysom Hill to be my tight end next year if I'm his team.
So you're getting away from Kyle Pitts altogether.
I mean, I'm not trusting Hill, and I'm gonna double up on tight ends because I don't think his wide receivers are bad by any means, and I think Mike Williams is just fine. I don't feel like there's any reason to really doubt Mike Williams except for some injury history. But for the most part, when Mike Williams plays, he's fantastic. So I'm doubling up on tight end and making sure I have a tight end who I can play on a regular basis, whether that's Pitts or Myers.
So
I'm fine with picking, for the sake of the group, with picking Hyatt, but
I'm not opposed to Meyer as well. But I think he's going to ride Pitts.
Yeah, you've got enough capital invested in that guy.
So real quick, I have seen Meyer go to the Lions. I have seen Meyer go to the Rams. Those are two of the biggest spots I've seen lately. Clearly, I'm not an analyst. I don't do all this stuff, but those are two of the spots I've seen a lot lately. If he goes to the Lions, I think that's a great landing spot. There's a lot of other weapons there, but that team's getting better. Goff will use a tight end. Hawkinson was good there. So I'm not opposed.
There was a couple no-name tight ends that did really good there in the last 6 weeks. The highlights were this guy caught a touchdown. I was like, well, that could be my uncle. Like, I don't know who that is. Like,
Right.
Brock Wright is a stud.
So with that, I don't know where he ends up. If he ends up with the Rams or the Lions, I think those are both good landing spots. And I think that he would fill in nicely. So I'm not opposed to giving him Mayer, which screws Paul over, but it doesn't really matter to me. Jalen Hyatt's fallen far enough as well. So
I just think is that Mike Williams is a wide receiver 3 is well worth the risk. But granted, I understand the depth concern. So that's what he wants to do. That's fine. But
I don't think it's a depth player. I think it's looking for the future. And we've seen that these wide receivers can take a year or two to develop and have a longer tenure. So with Tyreek and Devontae, I think he's got to look for that next regime.
With that being no, he has 2 firsts next year. He can grab 2 wide receivers.
I say let's go Hyatt because Mattoon sold me. Adams and Hill are aging. He could use someone who could sit in the wings, wait until they get older. Makes sense.
Is that not what I said originally? But you didn't like that? No, it's cool. It's fine.
Listen, I never listened to you. I don't know if you know that, but and I won a championship, so just saying.
That's fine. I won our other league. All right, let's move on. I've got the 202. What am I doing here?
Mayer.
You guys tell me.
You love your tight ends. It's Mayer. You can't resist.
I think Ty is in a position where he could take the division. So he's got Freiermuth, and I believe in Freiermuth, and I think Ty believes in Freiermuth too. So
I got Dolchik too.
Ty, who did you take before? In theory,
I took Kendre Miller.
Kendre Miller. So running back. Hyatt's still there. Hyatt's not still there.
We just took him off the board. If he is still there at 202, I will take him.
Yeah, if Hyatt's still there, that's a guarantee right there. Rashee Rice. I got Rashee Rice. I think you load up on running back and wide receiver. You trust in Freiermuth. You trust in Mahomes. And I think you load up on that skill position that is just so darn hard to maintain. And at the very least, you get the depth. And if it doesn't work this year, then you've at least got youth there going forward, which you love youth. So I'm going Rashee Rice.
Wide receiver Zay Flower, Rashid Rice. Those are the 2 that I like out of that current tier. So if you want to give me a wide receiver, I'll take either one you want to give me. You want to give me Rice? Mattoon, you good with that?
I'm giving you Rice.
Yeah, I was thinking if I'm in your shoes, I feel more comfortable with my wide receivers than I do my running backs. So I'm actually doubling up and going running back.
I have the 204.
Knowing you've got that 204 coming up.
Okay.
So here's the thing. If I take my running back choice here, Rashee Rice or Zay Flowers are currently going to make it to my next pick.
Exactly.
So take Tank.
That's why I'm doing it. That's why I'm taking Tank. Yep.
Mattoon, you're just a man beyond your years.
Well, when you don't have
that's a
picks,
brilliant move.
That's everybody else's.
Just a strategician who can't make a championship, but
I got 3rd place in regular seasons locked down.
I still can't believe that your team just took the absolute biggest shit in the last few weeks and then continued it through the playoffs just to piss you off.
Hey, we had a great final week.
Focus up. Pick 203. We've talked about it. It's going to be Michael Mayer. He's fallen far enough. Paul's taking a tight end to Phil Goddard. I don't care if you like it or not, Boyer. This is the time Paul takes him. We're moving on. Paul's getting tight end. I'm taking Rashee Rice. That's who you guys gave me. Now we're on to Matt at the 205.
Hold on.
Yeah, go ahead.
Paul's not taking a tight end there, but that's fine. You can give it to him.
Why not?
He's got Goddard. Doesn't make any sense to me. But
who's going to take the tight end? Who's going to take Mayer? How far is he going to fall?
Who cares? If I'm Paul, I don't care who's going to take Mayer. I'm worried about who I'm going to take, and I'm going to take a wide receiver running back because that's where he's at right now.
I disagree. I think that he takes the tight end here.
Okay.
He talked about moving Goddard last year.
He did.
You can move whoever you want. I talked about moving a lot of players last year, mostly Nolan, but I'm just saying, if I've got Goddard, I'm drafting as much depth in the other positions as I can as possible. But we'll take Mayer then.
That's fine. And I took Rashee Rice because that's who you guys are giving me.
Yep.
And then
Let's jump to Matt.
all right. So we have we covered Matt yet? We have not. He did not have a first round. Mattoon, run us quickly through Matt's team and then let's talk about it.
Stud running backs, McCaffrey, Barkley. 2 was his quarterback. He's got Kelsey, but his wide receivers are old. He's got Thielen, Hopkins. I'm not going to say Gallup's old, but didn't produce. Deontay Johnson didn't produce. Cortland Sutton, he's got Elijah Moore. And he's got some rookie quarterbacks that didn't pan out.
Yes. So what's his biggest need?
Do we
It's
believe
wide
in
receiver.
Tua? Do we think Tua plays and isn't dead in the head?
That's where I'm kind of going. I think his biggest needs are quarterback and wide receiver.
I think Stroud probably makes the most sense here. And I think he's got enough younger wide receivers that if they work out great, running backs are okay. I'd pick Stroud, and if his wide receivers don't work, then that's where he knows what he needs to do in the next draft.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I would 100% agree. And Boyer, when we mocked last time, it was the same pick. So,
was it?
So I'm glad that worked out.
Consistent to a
So
certain
he's going wide receiver then, is what you're saying.
All right, real quick. Back to Goddard. Goddard has finished 21st overall in standard, 10th, 21st, 10th, and 10th. His ceiling now is 10th tight end.
Okay, we can also throw stats all around, but like he's been injured like, I don't know, a bunch of those years. Like there's plenty of times. If he has a full season, he's fine.
He played 16 games his rookie year and was 21st. Played 15 games, finished 10th. Played 11 games, finished 21st. Played 15 games, finished 10th. Played 12 games, finished 10th. You assume at least a tight end loses one game. So maybe he missed one extra game and ended 10th. Tight end is not a good position. If Michael Mayer comes out strong, it's not a bad thing to have him.
I mean, I'm okay with the 10th overall tight end because turns out Kyle Pitts came out as like, I don't know, what was it, like the tight end 6, and he was like god of tight ends or whatever. Meyer's not that guy. Just saying. Not to mention tight ends is a wasteland after Kelsey and Andrews anyway. So who gives a shit? Like you're talking like a 4-point difference between every spot, if that.
True. All right.
Fair enough.
You brought it up, just saying.
I know. All right. So back to Boyer. Boyer took running back Tank Bigsby, Zach Evans, one or the other at 111 or at 112. Boyer's back on the board here. Then he has the pick at 209. We are sitting. Devon Achane is still there. Zay Flowers is still there, and if I believe if Zay Flowers falls this far, if Paul doesn't take Zay Flowers and he takes Michael Mayer like an idiot, why would you do that? Then Boyer may take him. Devon Achane's next best available, but he's a smaller scat back type running back. I don't know if Boyer wants that. Maybe that's the next Eckler type role. I've also seen him mocked to the Chargers at points to be the next Eckler type deal. I don't know if that's a good pick for Boyer or not.
It wasn't gonna work last year.
Right. So I guess at that point you got Kenny McIntosh out of Georgia. You've got Chase Brown out of Illinois. You've got Devon Achane. You got Zay Flowers. You got Cedric Tillman. Boyer's not worried about quarterback. So I would say if Zay Flowers gets a solid landing spot and falls this far, that's probably what he should do. He may pound running back and decide to go Chase Brown, decide to go Devon Achane, decide to go Kenny McIntosh, depending upon landing spots. Mattoon, any input on that real quick?
Yeah, I think Boyer's looking at what the run is going to be, and I think right now you might have one of those, I'll say, second tier wide receivers that falls here. I think he's taken that if he feels like he can continue hammering his running backs at the next pick.
Boyer, you go with me giving you Zay Flowers.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it makes sense. My wide receivers look good, in the first three. I've got some depth there. Adding some youth there is good. I will say is that I like Chase Brown as a Illinois homer, but that doesn't mean. I mean, there would have to be a lot of things that happened for that to
He'd have to
occur.
go to the Bears.
I mean, pretty much. I mean, like a wing T formation with that would be just. I mean, it would be stellar. But for the most part, at that point, like having some sort of depth. With the 112 and the 26 and the 29, I am looking for the 112 and the 26 to be moved up somewhere if I see the value, like if someone's there that I really want. So this pick might not exist, but I mean, who knows if that actually happens? Thank God we have a slow draft. Whoever hated on the slow draft just fucking sucks. Like those guys were garbage. It wasn't me at all, I promise. But yeah, if Zay Flowers is there, that's a really good pickup for me, I think.
It's a great pickup.
I would agree. With that, absolutely.
All right, so no one's back on the board.
Hold on, Ty.
Yes.
You're doing a podcast, and I know you're trying to flip through things real quick, but you're forgetting your favorite segment.
I know. I was going to do it at the end of round one, but then I got like, hey, we better hurry this up because we're going to be hitting 2 hours on this podcast.
Which our viewers will gladly watch in 10-minute segments, while they take their big shits at work. So
we should hit a little. Pow! Mid-round, what are you drinking? Mattoon, you got anything with you?
Yeah, I got it sitting over here. I'm just drinking a nice little Curves Light.
Well, there you go. He's going with the sponsorship right there.
That is.
I'm running straight Revolution tonight. I went Soul Hero, which is now gone, and now I'm into Jukebox Hero.
Nice. I went with some Basil Hayden. Went all fancy. On the rocks because I'm not an idiot.
I think we call that bougie these days.
I'm not trying to die.
That's fair. So, all right. Any of those beer sponsors out there following along with our mock draft, hit us up later.
Or whiskey. We're not we're not exclusionary here.
We're not alcoholic. I don't know.
We're not alcohol. Literally any sponsor.
All right. If you're Zay Flowers out there at pick 206 and you're like, hey, I need to give these guys some money, we'll take that too. It's fine. Charity case. So Nolan's got 2. He took Kendra. He did not take Kendra Miller. I took Kendra Miller. He took Zach Charbonnet in the first round. We talked about his team earlier. To be honest, this would be a spot that tight end would come in if Michael Mayer is still on the board. So if Michael Mayer is not gone, Colin Nolan should take him. We could take the second best tight end if we wanted, but I think he's got 3 picks in the 3rd round that he can pull a tight end there. He's got 5 picks in the 3rd round. My bad. He'll take a tight end at some point during that. He will hammer wide receiver, running back at this point to maintain trying to build. Chase Brown, Devon Achane, Cedric Tillman. Thoughts, quick.
I like Parker Washington, just as like a prospect coming out. I think he's a little bit outside of the cuff. I think Nolan likes, those type of players. It's very possible he also trades this for some random 29-year-old or 30-year-old random old ass veteran player who he thinks is going to be great. But I think there's a possibility based on Parker Washington's draft position that he falls enough in the draft that he ends up in a good situation and becomes enticing enough here. So any wide receiver I'm fine with, if that's what, if anybody else agrees. Parker Washington is my guy based off of what I know from the team and the player and the manager. And I personally think Parker Washington will be a good NFL draft player here.
Yeah, I think what Nolan's going to do if he keeps both of these picks back to back is he's going to go wide receiver, running back, knowing that he already took one running back. I think he's going to try to pick one of the best situations. And I think, whether it's A-Chain or who else is still there? Charbonnet? No. Did we already get rid of this? No, he's been gone.
You're looking at Chase Brown, Kenny McIntosh.
Chase Brown. Yep. Sorry. Yeah, Chase Brown was who I was thinking. I could see him going somewhere in there. As far as the opposite, the other wide receiver I could see that I don't think we've really talked about is Mims.
Hutchinson.
Well, Mims out of Oklahoma too.
Yep.
Don't forget that the QB production in Oklahoma, both their starting quarterbacks, and I have to say both of them transferred out, and the guy still produced.
Yep. He's on my list right there with Tillman and Hutchinson.
My only problem is that we've had a guy named Mims come into the league recently, and he's been garbage. So, for me, just emotionally, I don't know if I can make that leap. I don't know if I can make that pick.
Don't worry, Nolan will for you.
I don't know why that's a problem for you, because I'm the one that drafted him. I'm the one that's picked him up 7 times, and he hasn't done shit for me.
Yeah, sucks for you. I'm just saying is that as the champion, I don't make those dumb moves. I'm just saying. Listen, you can give me as many finger guns as you want to. All I see is 1, 1, 1, 1. Like I'm number one, so I appreciate it.
All right, so
we already know who Boyer's taking here.
He's taking Chase Brown if he's there.
He's taking Chase Brown.
Yep. God damn, you nailed me super quick. I need to change my a personality or something so you guys can throw you off things.
At the 206, you didn't say, "Damn, I'd take Chase Brown here, but it's fine. Give me Zay Flowers." Yeah, you're right.
Next time I'll throw you off a little bit next time.
All right, so now we're to Burnsy. We have not talked about Burns yet. He's sitting on Fournette, Montgomery, Aaron Rodgers. He's got good wide receivers with Jefferson, Chase, Lamb. He's got Schultz, which should be fine for another year. He's got Kmet. He's got Pollard, Mooney. He's got some depth, maybe. But he's got Derek Carr, Deshaun Watson, and Aaron Rodgers.
Ty, you forgot his 2 first-rounders from last year. Breece Hall and Sky Moore.
Oh, my bad. Sky Moore's still on taxi. You're right. That he's doing real well. And then Breece Hall should be back, but it may take him a little while to get back full blown. If you want me to go into IR, he's also got Michael Thomas that's sitting there that was good once.
Never playing football again. We're okay.
So he does have Breece Hall to go with Monty and Leonard Fournette. So running back might be the choice here because that's what he needs. But at this point, what's there? Kenny McIntosh, Deuce Vaughn, Spears, Roshan Johnson, Abanaconda, Dwayne McBride. Do any of these guys really toot your horn, tickle your fancy, whatever you want to call it?
If I'm Burns, yes, running back I think is a big need just based off of what we've talked about. But I think Levis is highly considered to be the number 1 overall pick this year. And I think that's where he's got to go. To be at the end of the second and have him the number 1 overall pick potentially still available, the guy that might be the best transition into the NFL pro system, I think it's a steal.
And with Carr and Rodgers not knowing what's happening, both older, with Deshaun Watson not looking good so far this year, I'm all about it. That's where I was going to go. I just hadn't had a chance to get there because I wanted to rag on the rest of his team first, except for his wide receiver.
No, you're good, man.
So Will Levis, great pick. We're going to move on to Andrew. Andrew currently has Bijan, Smith and Jigba, Butte, Bryce Young. So he's got 2 wide receivers, a running back, and a quarterback. I don't think this is a spot to take a tight end, so I don't see that happening. He could go depending upon how he feels. What's his quarterback situation look like, real quick?
Bryce Young.
Oh, he did take Bryce Young. You're right. If he didn't, there was another quarterback there that I would say he could go with. He's got Jared Goff and Carson Wentz to go with that. So at this point, I would say you're looking at Cedric Tillman, Hutchinson, Mims right here. You're going wide receiver. That's best available. Mattoon, you said earlier that you liked Mims. You go with me just giving Andrew a wide receiver here with Mims?
I think wide receiver makes sense for him.
Yeah, I mean, best available really makes sense for him at this point. He's already got 2 wideouts, a running back, and a quarterback. Take what should be the longest longevity wide receiver, take it, run with it. So now we're back to the same kind of situation with Paul. Paul is at the 212. Paul just picked Gibbs, Quentin Johnston. He took Josh Downs, and then he took Michael Mayer, possibly. So he has 2 wide receivers, running back, and tight end covered right now. Which, Boyer, you wanted him to take a wide receiver up there. At the 212, Tillman and Hutchinson are both still there. You wanted him to take a wide receiver in Zay Flower, Rashid Rice. I don't think this is a huge drop off from that to Xavier Hutchinson, Cedric Tillman. Depending upon landing spots, depending upon draft capital, all that. But I really don't think Tillman or Hutchinson is going to be a huge drop off from the Rashid Rice, Zay Flowers, whatever may be there at that point, at that early second. Especially there could be a couple more running backs that go in here, so you could see Parker Washington fall if you like him. Could push Mims back if he likes him. But I think this is a point where you go wide receiver and you take whoever you feel like is best. I would personally say I like both Tillman and Hutchinson, but I think Tillman is probably the better prospect. So I'm gonna lean Tillman. It's a 212. It's a wide receiver. We're gonna just go ahead.
I like Hutchinson.
I was gonna say.
I've seen.
Okay, fine. You guys like Hutchinson.
I know I'm biased,
but
Hutchinson came in with a brand new quarterback this year, still produced at an all Big 12 level. And I know people may want to rag on the Big 12, but he was legit for having a poor quarterback situation. Legit.
I like Hutchinson here. I think that would make sense. And Ty, you made fun of me because the tier drop off isn't there, and you're absolutely right. If this is what happens, then the tier drop off, like, they're pretty much in the same tier. So whether it's Tillman or Hutchinson, whatever, I like Hutchinson here if I was him. So
if we were mocking pre-combine and pre-draft and
right.
all of that, that's the guy we like. But
right. I mean, we're going off of generally we're looking at like athleticism and those type of things. Once we get into combine and all that stuff, and like the rookie mocks get a little bit more solidified, this is going to be so different. I mean, so much different is going to happen. And then once actually the draft happens, then we're going to look like fucking idiots.
100%.
In this video, we're going to look like morons. So you'll be like, I can't believe they want to do this. Like, whatever. It's like, it's fine. But right now, Hutchinson would be my guy. I don't feel like Tillman's that far off by any means. He's right there. So, but I'm with Mattoon. I agree with Hutchinson.
I think across the board, more analysts like Tillman better. That's why I threw him in there. I do like Hutchinson. So I'm not opposed to that. I just was taking what across the board seems to be the quote unquote better prospect to most people.
And I don't trust the Dynasty analysts because they're all morons, including ourselves at this point.
Right.
So, I mean, granted, I won a championship. I was sorry, I just trying to throw that in as much as I can.
So all right, well, we'll see what landing spots look like. We'll see how things play out. But at this point, guys, this is what it is. This is where we got you. Tell me how dumb we are for all of these picks. It's fine.
Hold on. Make some goddamn trades because there's a lot of trades that should happen here. I think we've all agreed, like, as this happens, that we're all like, there's some trades that should happen, and y'all need to talk to each other. So, Jesus.
Except for you,
100%.
Nolan.
Except with Mattoon. Stop trading with Mattoon. I'm tired of that. Trade with
Please
Nolan
just
if you
trade
want.
with the
You'll
third place team.
absolutely win, like 95% of the time.
All right. On that note, let us know how this draft went. Let us know what you thought. I know we ran a little long. If you're still here listening to me, hit that like, subscribe, whatever the hell you want to do. I don't even give a shit.
Don't
Comment, do a thing or don't. I don't care. But anyway, we'll see you guys later. We're out.